and you're getting this mundane kind of reaction, or this "I'm too tired" reaction, how would you what sort of advice would you give men to do? I mean, because the thing is, a lot of the times I think they avoid it that way.
This is a difficult one for me because I'm the exact opposite. I'll poke and poke and poke, and she'll sit there and be like, "No, I don't want to do it."
Okay.
So, but I do understand. I mean, do understand that sometimes you're gonna come home from. I feel that way. Come home from work and just switch off, and like, why now? Why now? And I think it took me a long time to get to the point where, for me, I think, sure, what advice should I give in that situation? That's a bit tough for me because, like I said, I'm the exact opposite.
We can use us as an example, or we can just draw from our own personal experience. If we need time off, we will articulate that we need time off, and we don't dismiss each other or brush each other off.
And as you said earlier, the
communication
is communication.
Yes,
because a lot of the times that's literally what breaks down a relationship is you're walking past each other, you're saying things, but you're saying it in your mind and it's not coming out. And I think the next person, the other person in the relationship, is not understanding what you're going through, but you're not relating it. That's
exactly
the reason.
And we make all of these assumptions in our head that our partner assumes to understand what we mean, or assumes what our needs are. And that is a huge mistake that many couples make in their relationship, is this huge assumption. He should just know, or she should just know I had a hectic day and I want to relax, or he should just know I've had a rough time with the kids, or I've been out, or whatever. We make these assumptions. And all it takes is for us to communicate what our needs are to our partners so that they have the opportunity to respond accordingly. And And how
would you expect, what advice would you give women? Because in a lot of the times you find that if a woman's trying to communicate with a guy, and like he says, you come home and you're tired and you feel you want to switch your button off, and that's your time out, and they get upset, and then the situation gets worse because she feels as though she's being neglected and ignored.
Mm-hmm. So the kind of advice that I would give is just to, you see, this can be so easily misconstrued, because when I say open up the channels of communication, I can envision this cooped up wife that's been at home with the kids, and her way of communicating, or her way of opening up the channels of communication is, I want to spend time with you. Why don't you have time for me? And not understanding that we need to have a medium of communicating with our partners, and understand their verbal and nonverbal cues. And we need to take the effort to understand what their love language is, so that we know when they need time to shut down, or when we know how to interpret the small insignificant actions as love gestures. And so for me, I don't feel there's a one size fit all to how to respond in that situation, because every single relationship is unique. And I mean, as a wife, you know exactly which buttons of your husband's to press. And that's why you press them, especially in an argument or in a disagreement. Now it's about having that vast understanding of him, and knowing how to love him properly, and knowing how to support him with all of the information you would use against him, because we tend to do that when we are being volatile in an argument. But now it's using this information. I know he values this, or I know he'd need some alone time now, or whatever it is. It's different for every single couple, and using that to love and nurture him.
What would you tell women going through physical abuse? Because it's something that is quite rife right now, especially through this COVID-19 period, because as I said, everybody's on top of everybody, and those triggers are just happening. Those sparks are going off.
So the first is definitely to speak up about it, because keeping quiet doesn't help. Protecting your husband doesn't always help. I know that for a long time I kept quiet because of the shame and the guilt and the stigma, and also because I didn't want people to judge Taahir, because I love him despite the things that he did to me, and despite the way that he treated me sometimes. I genuinely love him. He's an amazing father. He looks after me really well, and I didn't want people to look at him through that lens always. So there's so many reasons. The psychology of a victim is so vast. There's many reasons she doesn't speak out about it, and there's many reasons that she would. But for me, it's always realize that there are different kinds of forms of help, whether it's emotional help, spiritual help, physical help. If you need the help, you need to sort that help. And a lot of the times we don't realize that. One of my favorite quotes is, hurt people hurt people. And that simply boils down to people cause pain when they don't know how to deal with their pain.
Yes.
And when we realized that there was pain that he needed to heal from, it became easier to move past. So as much as you are a victim of abuse, because you were speaking about what kind of message I could pass on to a victim, there's also a lot of pain that the abuser is going through. I'm not saying that we want to empathize with him. If he's not ready to take accountability, and if he's not ready to man up for what he's done, then I don't think we'd be having this kind of conversation. So to a victim, I definitely say get help. Speak to somebody that you can speak to. Weigh out your options. Sometimes we feel so trapped because we have kids or because we have financial obligations or whatever the case is. So we feel that there are no options. I felt like there were no options for me, and so I created a third option. We created a third option for ourselves.
And I want Taahir to talk about this third option that you've created, because I want not just only the women, but the men out there to understand that there is a support structure. And this is what I say, this is what the show is about, is to make people understand that a lot of people that are going through situations, like I spoke to Chloe earlier, said she was alone. She had to create her own support structure. But now she, in turn, has become a support structure for others. Likewise, with the two of you. You started off with yourselves, created that solution and the support structure. Now you're reaching out to others.
Yeah, so like I said earlier, I mean, I looked for help. Eventually, what I did come across was what really helped me at that point in time was a book. The book was called "Stop Hurting the Woman You Love" by Charles Donaldson, I think.
Right.
But that there was the only help I actually found at the time. And I read the book, and it literally transformed my life. It was transformative, but I think it was at the point in my life where I needed to get that information. But then I started saying, you know what, it's tough. It's not easy. You're literally trying to change parts of myself that I didn't even realize were negative, toxic traits that I had, until I actually reflected on myself and said, you said, you know what, if someone had to actually do that to me, how would I feel? And if someone had to speak to me or say those kind of things or do those kinds of things to me, how would I feel?
But you get a lot of men that turn the table and say, she's the problem. She does this.
I can point fingers. I can
accountability.
point
It's a
fingers.
blame game.
Yes, I can point fingers at as long as I want. At the end of the day, I was the one who hurt her. Yes, there was verbal ups and downs between us, but I was the one who hurt her at the end of the day. And that was something I needed to take accountability for, and I needed to deal with, and I needed to fix about myself, because I didn't like that part of myself.
What was your turning point?
We had a really it wasn't actually even the biggest. It wasn't the worst argument we had, but we had an argument, and it was at that point I looked at ourselves, and we weren't speaking for a little bit of a while, and then I found the book, and I read the book, and that was the biggest turning point for me. And but I also think it was before that I read the book, because I was actually I said I don't want to do this anymore. And I think at that level, what I found is that it's a lot about control. It's about trying to control this woman and trying to control her. And I think the turning point for me, and the point where I could say that, was when I let go of control, and I gave control back to her. And that was the turning point for us in our relationship, because then she got to decide the terms of the relationship and how to move forward.
How did that make you feel? Because, I mean, a lot of couples would just, like I say, turn in the towel, throw it away, say, okay, that's it. I'm out of here. I don't need to deal with this anymore. But it's so nice to see that you guys have opened up. When Taahir opened up to you, what did it make you feel like?
So it was very intimidating, because for the first time I could dictate the terms of our relationship and what I wanted out of our relationship. And like we've spoken about, it came with a lot of communication. And it was really intimidating, because there's to put in the effort was intimidating, was scary. To think of the work that was required to have this functional, flourishing relationship, to think about the kinds of uncomfortable conversations we've had to have. And I use the word uncomfortable conversation because I like to envision a caterpillar spinning a cocoon, and then he's uncomfortable in that cocoon and he breaks free and becomes a butterfly. That discomfort is always the growth.
Right.
That uncomfortable, every time you feel uncomfortable in your space, whether you're having a conversation or whether you're learning something new and you feel uncomfortable, it's just when you're on the verge of growth. And so it was deciding whether I wanted to put in that effort, whether I wanted to default to our old style and perpetuate that pattern, that perpetuate that cycle of abuse, or start new. And I think that it was scary, but it was exceptionally exciting at the same time, because we got to create Marriage 2.0 instead of just go back to the old way. And now we got to, through this amazing communication and through shared goals and shared visions for what we wanted, we get to live that marriage, and we get to have it every single day, and we put in the effort every single day.
I like how you say Marriage 2.0.
And
It sounds like a whole new series of something amazing.
It is.
But just to clarify what Johara said, she made it sound like it was so easy. It was not. It was not so easy.
Okay,
It was a lot of uncomfortable conversations, and I think it was weeks and weeks of talking and working through working through a lot of stuff, because we tended to be in the past where we just brush things up to the carpet. Like we said, most people out there, you have an argument, you resolve the issue, but you don't actually resolve the issue. You make nice so that there's peace in the house.
I think we can talk through this all day. We need another session on this because we seem to be running out of time.
Oh, wow.
What sort of structure have you created for people out there? Can they refer back to you and say, you know what, Johara and Taahir, we're having issues in our relationship. We need direction.
Absolutely. So we have a support group. The support group is in aid of anyone that's healing from an abusive relationship. So children of abuse, abusers, victims of abuse. But the agenda we really want to drive is to show abusers that there is another option to managing your triggers and to understanding your anger, or support for abusers that are really, really committed to reforming.
That is so true. What message do you have?
So we're hoping to start our online Zoom support groups early next year. So if you guys everyone can check out our Instagram page for details.
What's it called?
Heal for Hope on Instagram.
Okay, so Heal for Hope I think it's very apt, because it gives us that renewal that we're looking for. So I want to thank you so much for coming in. It was such a phenomenal discussion. Too little time, too much to talk about. But I think it's given us a kickstart. I'm hoping we can catch up next year and follow through with this discussion. And we wish you nothing but the best going forward. It's so nice to see two people take something so serious, so bad, so avidly, should we say ugly? It gets very ugly at sometimes, and turn it into something so beautiful and so, should we say, prosperous. So shukr, alhamdulillah, congratulations. I think I owe you guys one. You have definitely given others the stepping stone to look at this and say, I also can change myself. Thank you for being those amazing role models.
Jazakallah to you as well.
Jazakallah so much for this opportunity.
And you're definitely not alone. Just remember that there's a support structure out here, and it's called Heal for Hope. Go there, join them. Let's get over this. Let's start enticing. And I was speaking to Sumaya Hussain earlier to say, let's create better relationships, because the quality of life is literally our relationships. We're going to go for a quick break. Stay with us. We'll be back with you in a bit.